Mary Poppins Returns is directed by Rob Marshall, and this movie once again follows the Banks family, only this time it is several decades after the events of the original film. But when Mary Poppins returns to help the now-grown Banks siblings and Michael's children through a difficult period of not only financial, but familial difficulties as well. The original Mary Poppins is one of the most well-known and well-regarded Disney films of the 20th century. It earned 11 Oscar nominations and still 54 years later is an absolute beloved classic. And seeing how that film came before other influential movies such as Star Wars as well as 2001: A Space Odyssey, I think that film was able to show audiences something they've never seen before and something truly astounding. But with modern audiences, I think that inciting that sense of magic and wonder is a bit more difficult to do. But even despite that, Mary Poppins Returns manages to capture not only a similar feeling of the original, but it was also able to produce a movie that is an absolute delight to watch. Seeing how today's day and age can seem a bit sobering at times, I cannot think of a more suited character to make their big screen return than Mary Poppins, who is marvelously portrayed by Emily Blunt. I do not envy the person who has to follow up Julie Andrews delivering one of the most iconic performances probably ever, but considering what she has to live up to, I thought she was absolutely phenomenal. And it's an interesting dynamic that she brings to this role, because not only does she do a very good impression of Julie Andrews of sorts, but there are a lot of key moments throughout this film where she's able to show this different side of Mary Poppins. And I do think that those scenes allow her performance in this film to stand apart from the original. And I do think where this movie shines the brightest are in the moments that it does try to differ itself from the original film. I'll get into that later. Throughout this movie, there's this element that is focusing on the children's mother, and I thought it proved to be one of the most touching aspects about this film, especially in this sequence where Mary is singing to the children, and I think that song that she does sing is without a doubt the best song in this entire film. It's so touching, it's so sweet, and it's incredibly heartbreaking. And I did think as a whole, this film's music was quite good. Now, granted, I do not think that this film's soundtrack is greater than that of the original, but there are two songs in this movie that I do think especially stand out. One I've already previously mentioned, but there is also another song in this film that is called Trip a Little Light Fantastic, which was stuck in my head the entire car ride home. And most of the songs in this film I thought were very good. I do say most because I do feel like there is one not only song, but entire scene in this movie that I thought almost could have been cut entirely from the picture, and it would have been better off for it. And surprisingly, this is the sequence that involves Meryl Streep, and unfortunately, I thought it was by far the weakest point in the film. I wasn't particularly impressed by the song, and I thought the sequence as a whole was kind of inconsequential to the rest of the film. Now, I did touch on it a bit before, but there are some elements in this film that do attempt to build upon what the original Mary Poppins established. Unfortunately, and it is my biggest issue with this film, those attempts are pretty few and far between, and as a result, this 54-year-old sequel doesn't really add that much to the original film. In fact, I did find most of this movie to be pretty derivative. For example, Lin-Manuel Miranda portrays a lamplighter, and although he is good in this film, he is essentially just a carbon copy of Bert, even down to his very over-the-top Cockney accent. In addition to that, I felt that the entire narrative of this film is pretty indistinguishable from that of the original. Because just like the original, most of this film is dedicated to how this father's financial difficulties affect the rest of the family. And not only that, but how these children could perhaps redeem their father in some way. So although Mary Poppins Returns is incredibly well acted, has strong music, and is an absolute joy to watch, it does sacrifice some of its narrative of elements that I would have preferred to see an update to, considering it has been so long since the original film. In fact, this sequel marks the longest gap between an original movie and its sequel of a live-action film in history. So due to that fact, I think that there was a pretty sizable amount of time that could have been dedicated to how the story could have been further continued instead of kind of just repackaging the original. So did you guys see Mary Poppins Returns? What did you think about it? Leave your thoughts and opinions down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you liked today's video, and if you did, you can click on the link down below and subscribe to my channel to see more movie reviews and movie related things. And guys, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.